too high. The current system was not working. Businesses were telling me they needed help. And the other part of it is that people need to know that if you play by the rules, if you work your whole life, that you can have some security that health care is going to be there for you when you need it. Family I met had their son excluded for pre-existing conditions because he had acne. A woman I met, she had to quit her job to take care of her mother who had Alzheimer's disease. And she's not able to find a job now, is losing her home. So people need to know that there's going to be some safety net for them. And that with the Blue Cross threatening to raise the rates 39% in 1 year, it was important to undertake reform. And that's why I supported the effort.
All right. Let's talk about the Middle Eastern situation. Congress passed a $32 billion supplemental appropriations bill, of which you supported. All of your Bay Area Democratic colleagues opposed it. Why did you vote in favor of it, and what is your assessment of what's the situation in Afghanistan now?
Well, Lisa, you know, the most important function of a government is to provide for the national security. I take that responsibility very seriously. My own son is a veteran, so this is a personal issue. I made the effort to go to Afghanistan in December, and I made some very important observations down there. Our troops are doing an excellent job. And I want to make sure that we give them the tools they need to succeed and the tools they need to provide our national security and be as safe as they possibly can in that very, very difficult environment. The officers are very well aware of history and the situation they're in. So I'm very impressed with the job they're doing, but I'm very concerned about the corruption in that government. And because of that, we're committed to a policy now, but I think at the end of the year, in 2011, next summer, at the end of next year from now, we need to take a close look and reevaluate that policy and make sure we're on the right path and make sure that we're not wasting our national resources or putting our young men and women at risk needlessly.
Okay. So, Mr. Harmer, another $32 billion on Iran, Afghanistan. If you had been in Congress, what would your position been on that legislation? And if you're elected, what would be your policy with respect to continued U.S. involvement in Afghanistan and Iran?
I would very respectfully urge the President to explain clearly why we're there. An administration that is afraid to use the word victory in discussing its aims is not an administration that is qualified to give leadership to the young men and women who are putting their lives in harm's way. I speak with personal passion about this because my brother Chris is a commander in the U.S. Navy and has spent most of his career in high-risk missions, including SEAL insertions and extractions, combat search and rescue. Too many of his peers have already paid the ultimate sacrifice. Too many of the mothers of his friends have heard that knock on the door and seen the two solemn uniformed officers. They are willing to do what we're asking of them to do. The least we owe them is an explanation of why we are there, what our strategy is, and how we will win. And so again, very respectfully, I would urge the President not just to appropriate funds, but to motivate the American people and explain what is at stake and why and how we're going to win.
Do you know why we're there? I mean, do you have a sense of why we're there? Do you support why we're there?
Well, you know, the Commander-in-Chief is ultimately responsible for that. I can give you my perspective. Pakistan on the border has nuclear weapons, and if instability in Afghanistan spills into Pakistan, the world is in huge trouble. Pakistan historically has been a notorious proliferator of weapons, and while we believe that we've put a stop to that, the risk is very high. So it's important not to allow the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or other factors who mean us great harm to establish a beachhead adjacent to that country. Having said that, you know, a strategy that says, well, we'll have a temporary surge, but we're going to be out of there by a fixed deadline, which is coming up pretty quickly, I believe just encourages our enemy to wait it out.
Okay. Well, let's talk about unemployment. We've certainly seen high unemployment numbers continue to be a problem. We've had more the jobless claims have gone up in recent weeks. Lots of people out there, you know, really hurting. If you were elected, what would you do to bring in jobs to the district?
Lisa, I want to emphasize how very important this problem is. Unemployment now nationwide is at 9.5%, but that excludes discouraged workers. In addition to the 14.6 million Americans who are officially unemployed, there are another 1.2 million who aren't counted in the statistics because they've given up looking. That is a human tragedy. In this district, it is much worse. In Contra Costa County, where we are now, the official unemployment rate is 11.3%. It ranges higher to 16.5% in San Joaquin County. And every day I talk to people who've been out of work 6, 12, even 18 months. They're not asking for more federal spending. They're not asking for more government programs. They're not even asking for an extension of benefits. What they're asking for is a prospering economy that creates new jobs. They want to work. I want to give them that opportunity by getting the federal government's budget under control. We're spending so much money that it is sucking all the oxygen out of the finance markets. There is nothing left for the private sector. It's like having a 10-pound tick on a 5-pound dog. While everybody in the private sector is tightening their belts and trying to make ends meet, the one market in the country that is prospering, the one real estate market, is Washington, D.C., which seems to be enjoying a permanent boom. There's something wrong with that picture.
So Mr. McNerney, Mr. Harmer would have us believe that if government just got out, everything would be better. And I know that's an overstatement. So, Mr. McNerney, what's your view on job creation and getting the economy restarted? We've had the jobless recovery, if you can call it that, and people are pretty unhappy about it.
Well, I certainly share their frustration. And again, I've been around the district. We've had some foreclosure workshops. I had a young man in front of me in tears because he's not able to support his family. He's about to lose his home. And I hear these stories continuously. And it's very tragic and it's very difficult. But I think there's some very specific steps that I've advocated that I will continue to advocate and work for to create jobs. First of all, we need to create infrastructure so that our businesses can compete and export our goods. We need to make sure that there's tax breaks targeted to small businesses to encourage them to create new positions and hire new people. We need to stop outsourcing. I've written a bill to prevent outsourcing, and we need to bring those good American jobs back home. We need to work with the banks to see that they start lending to small businesses again, which is a complaint I hear all the time. And so those are very specific steps that I've taken. Those are having some effect now, but we're not where we need to be. As Mr. Harmer pointed out, the unemployment is distressingly high. We see tragic stories every day. But let's not forget how we got here. We had Wall Street run amok. We had big banks causing problems without any kind of oversight. And I'm sitting here fighting for the people of my district. I'm not fighting for corporations. I'm fighting for people, for jobs. And I'm here to listen to them, and I'm here to help them any way I can.
Now, you made reference to Wall Street, and there has been a reform package signed by the president to do an overhaul of the financial system, and you supported that legislation. Why did you support that? Did you think that was, some Democrats said it didn't go far enough, while the Republicans said it was overbroad and intrusive.
Well, I think it was very important to put regulations in place that prevent the sort of overrun and excess that happened in Wall Street in the past decade or so. And that includes a consumer protection agency. It includes protection from credit card abuse. It includes predatory lending, controls of predatory lending. And these are things that I think are absolutely essential. It also prevents big bonuses, which I think were abusive, and puts the consumer back in charge of his own or her own destiny. And I think that was absolutely critical. Or otherwise, we'd be facing the same problem we're facing now. We'd be facing it again in the near future.
So, Mr. Harmer, what is your assessment of that financial reform package? You actually worked as an attorney in the banking industry, have great knowledge on that subject. Didn't the system need to be reformed?
It did, and what disappoints me about the bill that recently passed the House is that it ignored the very roots of the problem. You remember what it was like a few years ago. You couldn't turn on the radio without hearing somebody barking, no job, no income, no credit history, criminal record, no problem. We've got money for you. Mortgages with no money down. In fact, we'll pay you. No money down, no documentation. Well, think about it. No rational human being is going to lend his or her own money under those circumstances. Why